we actually acquired the PARTNER-N64 Network debugger software. Holy shit. What's going on, everybody? Today's video, what are we doing and what are we talking about? I've just been super busy working on some projects. It's a little chaotic for me, but I'm finally back and I've got a really sweet, awesome video to share with you guys. So as I mentioned, we have tracked down the PARTNER-N64 Network debugger software. So this is the software for a development kit that was released by Kyoto Micro-computer that was targeted for developers using SGI computer systems. Now, if you haven't watched the previous hardware demo that I did for the PC version of this development kit, the PARTNER-N64 PC, I definitely recommend that you go and check that out first, because I go over and review a lot of the functionality of the debugger software and talk about the hardware, which are essentially the same between these two systems, just working on a different operating system and computer system. So link is above and it's also in the description. One thing I want to mention that's important, and so that people don't get confused, there were two development kits that could be used with the SGI Indie Workstations. So early in the N64's life cycle, Nintendo had produced the Silicon Graphics Ultra 64 development board. And so this was an accessory card or an accessory board that could be inserted into the SGI workstation and was essentially an N64 console with some RAM, and along with some debugger software, developers could quickly test and debug their code for games under development. And so that was one of the very first development kits that N64 developers were using. So I wanted to make note of that because I don't want people to get confused with this version of the hardware. That GPIO board was released by Nintendo and Silicon Graphics, whereas this kit that we're looking at here today, the partner kits, the PARTNER-N64 was created by Kyoto Micro-computer. And so Kyoto Micro-computer had released the PC system, which was the video that I did before last year. And they also produced this system here, the PARTNER-N64 Network, which allowed developers to use their SGI workstations. Now again, it could be used not only with the SGI Indie, it could be used with other systems like the Onyx, the Indigo 2, etc. Whereas the original Ultra 64 development boards could only be used with an SGI Indie. Again, I just wanted to make note of that so people didn't get confused between the two systems. Now, how we came across this debugger software for this development kit is pretty cool, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I was just, before Christmas, I was working on a project, I was just working in the lab, and I got a message from my buddy Andrew, and he just fired me a quick message on Twitter, and he just said, "Hey, Jer, have you seen this yet?" And, so I took a look, and there was the photo of this SGI PARTNER-N64 debugger software that I have been looking for years. So you guys can imagine how, it was just like explosion. I freaked out and I was like, where did you find this? Where is it? Did you get this yet? Do you have this? And he was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just trying to get some funds together. It's for sale on Yahoo Japan. And, we should try to acquire this before it disappears forever, right? So Andrew was coordinating this, and he was bouncing around, was talking to everyone, trying to get some funds together so that we could purchase this. And so we all sort of pooled our money together. And so there was Andrew, myself, Tony from Hard for Games YouTube channel. There was my buddy Jace. He helps out, everybody with figuring out how to get prototype ROMs working. Forest of Illusion, of course, was in this, everyone was sort of working together, and we managed to purchase this CD. So it is absolutely amazing that we got the software, and today I'm here to show you guys how it all works and how this all came together and demo this development kit. It's pretty cool, pretty awesome. So the main difference between the two versions of these partner kits, the kit that we're looking at here today came with what's called an interface box. So in this unit you have an ISA backplane that allows you to connect a power supply and provide power to 3 separate PC ISA cards. And so Kyoto Micro-computer designed this system to house an SBC ISA card, which is a single board computer, and that has a processor, some RAM and memory to run some DOS-based software. As well, the second ISA card in this unit was a network interface card for hooking up a LAN connection or an Ethernet connection. And then the third ISA slot is for connecting the PARTNER-N64 parallel interface card. And that's the interface card that's used with the PC system. So that just allowed them to repurpose the same ISA card that's used with the PC system and allowing them to use it here with the SGI version of the development kit. The interface box, it's sort of acting like a middleman, so to speak, and all of the debug information that's coming from the partner cartridge is sent through the parallel connection, and then that information is then converted and sent over a network connection, a LAN connection, to the SGI Workstations. Now, the network signal that's being sent requires a network hub, and so that would just do the crossover signals and allow communication to happen between the interface box and the Indie workstation. And then that information is received and displayed on the desktop for developers to debug and work with the game that's under development. Now, I did acquire a Japanese copy of the user manual for this version of the kit. So it was a little cumbersome because I had to, scan the document and then run it through an OCR filter to, do character recognition, importing that into Google Translate and then trying to decipher what the manual was saying. And so, I did get the gist of it. According to the manual, the way the interface box was to be configured for its IP address and all the network settings, you would use a serial RS-232 null modem cable. And that would allow you to communicate and configure the unit using a hyperterminal session with an IBM computer. So, but what I found was that the serial connection to the interface box was not configured at all. There was just zero communication happening there. So I was sort of speculating as to, it's possible that this unit was never configured to do it that way. It was an early model perhaps. Or it could also be that one of the developers that obtained this unit had just made some changes and it just prevented serial communication from happening. What I ended up having to do to get this unit configured, I had to insert an ISA VGA card. Lucky enough, I had one of these cards in with some of the old computer parts that I had, and I was able to interface it to the interface box and get a monitor hooked up, just allowing me to see what was going on with the onboard computer card. And so after hooking that up and I had the keyboard hooked up, I managed to get communication happening there, and I was able to manually configure the IP settings and all the network settings, the MAC address and whatnot, and allowing the system to boot up properly. So that was a lot of fun, just getting that configured, and I was super hyped once I got the network settings all configured. So after that, it was just a matter of reinserting the partner parallel interface card back into its slot, and I moved forward to try and set up the debugger software on the SGI workstation. There were two versions of the debugger software that came on the software CD. There was one that was used for later versions of IRIX, where you would just go in and use the software manager and it would automatically install it for you. Then there was a second version that had a script file which would allow you to install the software manually. And that ended up being the version I had to use because I was using an early version of the IRIX OS, that being version 5.3. There was some variables there that had to be declared for allowing the IP address to be detected properly, and once all that was configured, the system booted up and it proceeded to show and display on the screen. So now when the software booted, you guys can just imagine how excited I was. The screen came up and it showed the Kyoto Micro-computer logo and showing the cartridge memory for the partner cartridge. It was just so awesome, and I was so psyched, and it had taken so long for me to get this thing up and running. So that was a pretty awesome moment when I got that thing to finally boot up and it showed up on screen. It's pretty awesome. So now I'm going to quickly go over the interface for this version of the kit. So you have all this equipment all running, and then you have your monitor and your mouse, your keyboard for the Indie machine, and you can proceed to boot up the debugger software. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select our root, and we're going to go ahead and log in. Okay, so this is the default screen that you see when we first boot up. At the top here I have a few mounted folders. So I have a DINA session running on my connected PC that's running in a VM, and that allows me to quickly transfer files from a Windows-based operating system over the network to the Indie, and allowing the two different file systems to communicate. And this is a really handy thing to have when you're using the IRIX software, and it's for transferring software, or if you're transferring ROMs and whatnot. In this case, for using the debugger software, I'll transfer various installation files for programs and also ROMs that I'm using for test. So that's a really handy thing, and I might do a separate video on how to mount those folders using a DINA session running on a VM, but again, that'll be a later video. So as well, what we'll do is check out some of the environment variables that I had to set up in order for this software to work. So if we do a print environment here, so as you can see, there's a series of different environment variables that had to be declared for the partner debugger software to function properly. For starters, there's a help file. There's also a path that we've added for the partner debugger software and its file path. Now the main one is this PTSCR for the partner source file location. And that's essentially whatever project you're working on, you can declare the folder path when you're running the debugger software. So that's a pretty critical thing to have set up. We will look at one of the config files for the partner debugger software. I'll show you guys that. And that's for setting up and declaring the IP address, allowing network connection between the Indie workstation and the interface box. Okay, so now if we go in and activate my source view software. Okay, so under etc cshrc, we'll go ahead and open this file. So as you can see here, we have the environment variables being set up and declared at boot up. And so this section here, you can see all the different commands that we have to set the path, the source file location, the help file, and also a temporary folder location. And then we'll take a look at the config file for the partner software. So that file is eptn64.cfg for config. So within this file, as you can see, we have a series of different variables that are being declared. We have a port address for the PARTNER-N64 parallel interface card, and that's a default of 320. Addresses here for the partner cartridge, memory map addresses being declared. As you can see as well, there's ROM speed, monitor area, which you can designate ROM or RAM, depending on how you're running your testing. And now here, this is important here, and this is the debug address, and that's for the partner cartridge in order to access and display debug information. So essentially this debug address is used for relaying information from your ROM under test. You can declare specific debug messages to be forwarded to a specific address, and the interface box and the partner hardware is then monitoring that address for debug information and then allowing it to relay that data onto your command window while you're working and debugging your source code. And as well, we have some other variables being declared for using breakpoints with the debugger software. So all of this information is available, and you can customize it based on your debugger hardware. We're going to look at PTN64. So now this is a pretty critical file for us to have set up, and this essentially dictates which IP address the interface box has been set up and declared, and that allows communication between the SGI workstation and the interface box. So the first thing we have is a folder path to our network file location. As well, we have a host parameter here that declares the IP address that we're using for the interface box. As well, we have the folder path to our debugger software and 5 separate debug parameters. So that's about it. So once we have that declared, primarily the IP address, then the debugger software is able to boot up and communicate. So the first thing we're going to do is boot up the modified N64 console. And then from there, we can activate the partner debugger software. So we'll go ahead and activate that. And there we go. You can see here that a partner X Windows server has been activated. And so I'm not 100% sure yet, still playing around with it, but I'm thinking that the interface box is actually running the debugger software. And then the SGI Workstation has a software package that's receiving all that debug information and just sort of acting like a terminal window to relay all that debug information. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what I'm thinking. So now again, the software pretty much works exactly like the partner software on the PC system. Very similar. Again, it's just a different interface. So as you can see on the bottom, it validates the ROM size of the partner cartridge that you have inserted. And we have 32 megabytes here. Okay, so we're going to load one of the simple demos that came with the SDK. So we would type the command L and then the folder path to our demo that we want to test. and then the name of the file. So we hit enter, and it will proceed to load that demo into the partner cartridge memory. Okay, so now I'll activate my television. That should be loaded. And now if I hit F5, here we have it. So we have that simple demo is running. And as you can see on the screen there, when I start pressing the buttons, we have all the different debug messages being relayed onto the screen based on the buttons that I'm pressing. You guys have seen this before, and this was one of the other demos I had done. However, this is pretty cool because it's running on the PARTNER-N64 network, which I've been trying to get going for the longest time, so it's pretty awesome. Now, if I hit escape, so this is another simple version of the demo, and as you can see, when we hit F1, we can go in and select different source code files to examine. And so by simply clicking the mouse in different locations, we're able to go in and navigate that source code file for viewing and looking for errors. One thing to mention too is that the partner debugger interface, it's not actually an IDE. It does not allow you to go in and edit directly. This terminal window here for the debugger is simply for viewing. So you have to do that with a separate program, an IDE, to go in and edit your source code. And like one of the ones that comes with the debugger is this source view program, which is just a very dirt basic file viewer, source code viewer, and it allows you to go in and modify and make some changes. So of course you have all the different options. You can look at a local command window. There's assembly code view that you can check, and as well, if we run that program and when you hit escape, it'll pause and halt the program at that specific file location, depending on the program that you're running and the ROM that you're testing. And yes, the PARTNER-N64 network does support the 64DD development drive. So this is the same as with the PC version of the kit. If we were to enter a disk ID command into the command window, that being DDR/I, the disk would be read and the information for that disk would be relayed onto the screen. That would display the disk type number, the starting address, the IPL version, the disk name, version, disk number assigned, the usage code, and the serial number. And so again, this is the same as with the PC version of the kit, just operating on a different operating system. So that wraps the video today, guys. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone that was involved in getting this software and allowing me to finally demo this development kit for everyone here on my channel. So of course, a huge shout out goes to Andrew, Gaming Legend 64, for coordinating that and getting everyone to help out and pooling our funds together to acquire this software. Tony from the Hard for Games YouTube channel, our good friend Jace, Forest of Illusion, and his Twitter account. He released everything on Twitter. Lots more to come, and I'm planning on trying to step up and post more as much as I can. So hopefully I can do that in the future and as we move forward. It's gonna be cool. I got a lot of content that I want to post, so we'll see how things go. As always, guys, hit the like and subscribe if you can. I do appreciate that always, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy. Ciao.